I'm going to show you how I mastered the first new Job For A Cowboy record in the last 10 years. And I think we can all agree based on that last single, it's a hell of a banger. This is super exciting for me too, because it's going to be the world first premiere of the brand new Flatline 2 production version, the maximizer that I've been working on behind the scenes with my company Submission Audio, in tandem with doing this record. So you can think of them as two peas in a pod. We'll be going through the mastering process piece by piece until at the very end I'll show you how Flatline 2 was a crucial component of getting the sound of this record. Now, because Flatline 2 won't be out by the time that you see this, I've left a link to the mailing list in the description down below that will notify you the moment that it comes out. This should be especially exciting to those of you who already own Flatline 1 because, in true Submission Audio fashion, you're entitled to the update completely free of charge. Now, let's get into the master. Behold, a mix from the legendary Jason Suecof. Alright, I think that says enough. We've got three main takeaways from that. The first is that the mix is f***ing sick. The second is that the band is f***ing sick. And the third is that the music is f***ing sick. So we need to observe rule number 1 of master engineering. Don't fuck it up. If you've never heard that before, that is actually the cardinal rule of all mastering engineering. Do not take what people have worked so hard on and make it worse. There's a lot more that we can do to mess this up than to actually improve it. As you can hear from the mix, it's completely world class. This is about as good a mix as you will ever get as a metal mastering engineer, so it's an absolute treat to work on. And because Jason is a hybrid guy, I know that this is a real mix using real gear, that this isn't some laptop bullshit, so I'm not going to have to deal with having to undo the damage of smeary, sub-enhanced, weird sub-harmonic low-end from crappy, cheap saturation plugins, or any of the things that come with people trying to approximate the sound of analog digitally. I know that it's actually been done. The things that need to be analog actually were analog, and the things that needed to be digital actually were digital. So this is the ultimate form of mixing in the modern era. So it's an absolute treat as a mastering engineer to get a project like this. So very quickly, before we get into the mastering, I'm going to show you an A/B of the mix versus the master, and you'll get an idea of where we'll want to take this. This is the mix. And this is it with the full mastering chain. Enough said, right? You can hear what we're aiming for. So let's deconstruct it and get into what we're doing and why. So as you probably picked up on, the first thing that I want to do is expand the dimensionality of the lows. Now, one way that I'm going to do this is with one of my favorite EQ plugins for this kind of thing. It's called the Purple 3 H2. This is a Pultec model from Acoustica Audio. If you've followed my channel for any length of time, you know that Acoustica Audio make my absolute favorite analog modeling EQs. And also to match Jason's energy from his hybrid mix, we're going to be doing a hybrid mastering process. So digital EQ combined with analog compression. It's going to give us a really cool sound. So the Purple 3 H2, one thing that it does just by turning it on is kind of expand the mid bass and the low mids. And we want that because we want Nick's playing, being the bass player, to be right up front. Everybody knows ever since Sun Eater, this is the bass band, right? It's like the new Mudvayne. So essentially it's what it sounds like without. With. You can hear it immediately, very subtly reinforces the lows. But another thing that I want to do is I want to boost 30 hertz, right? So on the CPS at 30, we're going to crank up the boost a little bit. Let's take a listen. It's already the magic setting, right? So it is the perfect EQ for this record. And I knew the moment I threw it on, I was like, wow, these are married to each other. We're also going to zing up the highs a little bit at 12K. Just make it a little bit more sparkly. Very subtle, but the low change is the big one that we're going for. Now, we go to our surgical EQ, which is Pro Q3 in natural phase mode. One of the first things that I want to do here is create, again, space for the bass guitar. We want the bass guitar to be up front and center and unobstructed. So one of the most important things to ensure this is we'll do a side cut at 225 hertz, which tends to be the bass cab flub frequency of rhythm guitars. We're going to take that out because that's where all the note information of the bass is coming from. Hear how much clearer that is? Let's jump to another part of the song, like Nick's crazy fusion shit here. So you can already hear the bass is beautifully up front and center. Almost too much so, right? So now we move to 265 hertz. We're going to subtract a bit of that out of the entire mix. Just a tiny amount, kind of gives the kick more focus, kind of makes the entire thing sound a little bit more snappy. And I'm going to also very subtly high pass the sides at about 21 hertz. What this is going to do is once again unobstruct the kick and the bass in the center by kind of just filtering out the guitar sublows that we don't need. Beautiful. Now, one thing that we're going to hear, I think, in the choruses, I want to get a bit more vocal clarity. That's one of the things that the guys asked for during the mastering process. So one easy way to do this is I'm going to take away some of the high mids from the rhythm guitars that become very apparent in the extended chord sections, like the chorus. So 3 kilohertz prime frequency for this because it's the peak of the vocal range. And you can hear that taking away that fizz at 5.1K was the magic for hearing the vocals. The moment I took that out, you could just hear the vocal more clearly. Like, listen as I switch it in and out. As soon as that just gnarly, nasty shit gets taken away, you can hear the vocal more up front. And I think that's very important on this record. Most of the note information in the rhythm guitars is in the low mids, much like it is for the bass. So a lot of that fizzy stuff up high isn't that necessary. It adds to the aggression of the music, but a lot of the time it can conflict with the clarity. And really, we want the vocals, we want the bass, we want everything sitting in its own special little place here. So from here on, we move on to the 2-bus compression portion of things. Now, we're going to get very high tech here. I'm going to record the outboard gear with my phone's camera, and then we're going to see what I'm actually dialing in and what it's actually adding to the sound. So here we go. Okay, so this is the front panel of my SSL, the Bus Plus, which is what we'll be running on this master immediately after the EQs. So as you can see, the threshold, it doesn't really matter, it's not really relevant, but it's enough for us to be basically just kissing the needle, as you can see. I'm not even sure if you can see that needle moving. That's how subtle this is. I more want the saturation characteristics and the envelope shaping than anything else. You can see the attack is at 1 ms. Makeup gain kind of irrelevant for this, but one of the magic things I'm doing is the sidechain high pass filter is just above 60 hertz, which is once again giving us more of that subharmonic low. The kick is coming through, the bass is coming through, it's giving us more dimensionality. And ratio is at the very subtle 2:1. Release is on auto, which is a 2-stage release character I really like, especially when I'm doing a gentle amount of compression like this. And wet is, of course, 100% full. Now, the only other things to know, if you can actually make out from how bright this is, the low THC button is in, which gives us even more kick. And over here, the 4K mode is on, and it's on yellow, which means that I'm actually getting a lot of saturation out of this thing, which is one of the things that really pushed the bass to the forefront. All right, so here's the section without the SSL, the Bus Plus. Still sounds damn good. With the compressor, great. So with that done, I'm going to show you this very quickly before we move on to Flatline. If you've seen any of my videos before, you will know about my special satin magic mastering trick where we'll split the bands. Everything beneath about 240, 230 hertz gets unaffected completely, but then we subtly saturate the low mids and the highs. So in this case, I'm running a drive of 23.15 and I'm running a mix of 23.95, and we'll simply compare this again, just like we did with the compressor. Listen for a subtle densening effect, a widening effect, a congealing effect. It's really a magical setting. I've actually sold some of my mastering engineer friends on this recently. I don't know how we arrived at this, but I'm very happy with it. So take a listen. This is without, and then I'll switch it in and out as you listen to the part. Try to train your ear if you try this at home, and try to listen for what it's actually doing. It can really make the difference sometimes. Voila, this is the brand new Flatline 2, and I will skip the entire product demo because we'll have a video on that coming soon. I'm going to jump straight to the new hybrid mode, which is our new intelligent mode that kind of handles everything I've ever wanted as a mastering engineer. If you've seen my videos before, you'll know that I used to like running the isotope ozone into the Pro L to get everything I wanted level-wise and congealment-wise. Hybrid has been created to basically serve both of those purposes for me, and we have spent a really long time getting it to that point. A lot of it on this record as well, so I want to show you what this sounds like. This is completely a default settings, so I'm going to get it up to what I consider to be perhaps the right level, and then I'll dial the settings to effect to make it pretty much absolutely perfect for us. So here we go. All right, so what's happening there? What the hybrid algorithm is doing is intelligently splitting the signal into a steady state portion and a transient portion. The transients are being clipped and the steady state signals are being limited. So we're getting the best of both worlds. That's why the drums are really nice and snappy, even at a super loud volume, as you've probably heard on the single already, but that's why it never crackles. Despite that, even if the guitars are naked or they're rolling with toms, you never get those crackling effects that you might get on the straight up clip modes. So that's something that makes me super excited. Now, I'm not going to get into detail on these settings, but the most important ones are the envelope here. The attack essentially controls how much transient and drum forwardness you get. That's what you heard me jogging earlier. While the release essentially controls a release envelope like you might consider on a compressor. The longer it is, the more glued it sounds, but the more immediacy it loses. For this particular record, I like about 69.5, give or take. Now, the color is something a little bit more esoteric. Down at 0 is what you hear on the final record, but I'm going to jog it up here a little bit so you can hear what it does. It's almost like a saturation effect, but not quite. So let's jump to another section of the song to check this out, where Nick thinks he's in Mudvayne. I like that one. I like the amount of glue that you get at about 32.5, but I mean, if you really want drum forwardness, you can do this. Or if you want no drums. In a nutshell, that's how I mastered the new Job For A Cowboy record. Flatline 2 mailing list link down below, and keep an ear out for their new singles because you won't believe what's coming. These guys have come back in absolute top form after the last decade, so yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing. So until the next time, I'll see you later.